You are not here by accident. We are standing at the edge of possibilities between what is, what could, and what will be. Where time, space, and humanity cross paths. Where the future has stopped being theory as old assumptions fade away and new realities are becoming real. Are you ready to step beyond the familiar? Look no further and enter the third horizon.
Before we begin, I want to say something briefly and intentionally. From the very first episode of The Third Horizon, I said this podcast would not be about outrage, noise, or chasing headlines. It would be about perspective, long view thinking, and preparing responsibly for what comes next. That commitment has not changed. What you will notice, especially if you are watching on video, is that these episodes are not perfect. There are minor flaws, small stumbles, moments that could be edited tighter. Yes, we could polish every frame. Yes, we could remove every imperfection. But perfection is not the goal here. Authenticity is. Civilizations do not fail because they are imperfect. They fail when they pretend to be something they are not. So we are building this show excuse me. Excuse me. So we are building this show the same way responsible institutions should be built, which is honestly, steadily, and in the open. And as this conversation grows, I want you to get involved. If there are voices you believe should be part of this dialogue, leaders, thinkers, scientists, historians, spiritual voices, put their names in the comments. This is not a closed platform. It is a developing one. Episode by episode, we are widening the horizon together. Now, let's talk about something far more dangerous than imperfection. Let us talk about forgetting. There is a moment in the film Darkest Hour that lingers long after the credits roll. Not because of spectacle, not because of drama, but because of resolve. Winston Churchill stands at a moment when history itself feels uncertain, when defeat looks practical, even reasonable, and when acts of surrender are being framed as realism. And his response is not clever. It is not modern. It is not new. It is memory. Never surrender was not a slogan. It was a warning born of remembrance. Churchill was not speaking only to his cabinet or to his parliament. He was speaking through history, through centuries of hard lessons paid for in fear, loss, and consequence. The moment sparked a thought that feels difficult to ignore today. We live in an age that knows more than any civilization before it. And yet, we behave as though we remember almost nothing. I want to introduce a new term, one I've had been turning over for some time now. It is historical amnesia. Not ignorance of history, not denial of it, but something more dangerous. The habit, both personal and collective, of living as if the present moment exists in isolation, detached from the lessons that came before it. Historical amnesia is what happens when urgency replaces wisdom. The past is not unknown. It is treated as irrelevant. We say things like, this time is different. That was then and this is now. We have moved past that. Or my favorite, we will not make the same mistakes as they did. Sometimes these phrases are true. Often they are not. We forget why systems were built, why safeguards were designed, why certain warnings were issued, and why certain lines were never meant to be crossed, even casually. Historical amnesia is selective memory. It preserves victories and discards cautions. It celebrates outcomes while ignoring the costs that produce them. It operates on two levels. At the societal level, institutions forget their original purpose. At the personal level, individuals repeat avoidable mistakes because experience is dismissed as outdated. In both cases, the result is the same. We pay again for lessons already learned. Consider the Roman Republic. It did not fall because it lacked intelligence, engineering, or law. It fell because it forgot why restraint existed. Early Rome was deeply suspicious of concentrated power. They remembered life under kings and how fragile freedom could be. So they built safeguards, term limits, shared authority, legal barriers against personal rule. Over time, success bred confidence. Expansion brought wealth, and wealth brought ambition. Emergency powers became routine. Exceptions became patterns. Authoritarian leadership was tolerated just this once, repeatedly. Rome did not abandon its system overnight. It forgot why that system existed. By the time recognition arrived, the Roman Republic survived in name only. That is historical amnesia. A more modern example follows the same pattern. After World War I, Germany attempted something new, a constitutional republic, civil liberties, democratic institutions. But memory was uneven. The pain of embarrassment and economic collapse was fresh. The memory of how democratic systems fell under pressure was weak. Under stress, emergency powers became normalized. Political compromise was framed as weakness. Institutions were blamed rather than protected. No single moment destroyed democracy. Temporary measures accumulated. And once again, by the time recognition arrived, reversal was no longer possible. One of the defining pressures of modern life is urgency. Everything demands attention now. Everything feels critical. Everything is framed as a crisis. Urgency compresses time. It narrows thinking. It rewards speed over reflection. Historical amnesia thrives under pressure. History asks us to pause, to compare, to acknowledge that others face similar moments and pay dearly for certain choices. Reaction feels decisive. Reflection, however, feels slow. But urgency is not the same as importance. When decisions are made under constant pressure, memory becomes inconvenient. Short-term solutions replace long-term responsibility. Confidence fills the space where caution once lived. Civilizations do not drift because they reject wisdom. They drift because they stop consulting it. And now a word for our sponsors.
This episode of The Third Horizon is brought to you by CoinToss Coffee, a brand built on passion, family, and the bold leap into possibility. Every blend is handcrafted from Kevin's own recipes, including their best-selling Cowboy Roast, bold, smooth, and unforgettable. And right now, listeners of The Third Horizon can enjoy 10% off their order at cointosscoffee.com using promo code Horizon10. That is cointosscoffee.com. CoinToss Coffee. Take a chance on a better cup.
There is a reason early leaders obsessed over the past. They were not nostalgic. They were not cautious. The architects of early political systems studied failed republics not to admire them, but to avoid repeating them. Churchill studied European history not to quote it, but to recognize its patterns. They understood something we struggle with today. History is not a story. It is a data set, a record of what happens when fear overrides principle, when convenience overrides structure, when ambition overrides restraint. Memory was not academic. It was survival. They did not assume progress was automatic. They assumed failure was the default unless actively resisted. That assumption shaped everything they built. When historical amnesia sets in, the costs appear slight at first. Institutions lose coherence. Rules become flexible when they should not. Exceptions quietly replace standards. At the personal level, novelty is mistaken for wisdom. Old warnings are dismissed because they are uncomfortable. Over time, societies begin repeating arguments their ancestors already settled, often painfully. They relearn lessons once understood so clearly that entire systems were built to prevent forgetting them. And when those systems fail, we act surprised. Forgetting always comes with a cost. History confirms it, and the future collects it. There is one domain where historical amnesia struggles to survive. That domain is the space frontier. When space agencies operate according to engineering reality rather than political timelines, memory becomes non-negotiable. Every launch is built on records of the past failures. Every mission plan is shaped by lessons learned the hard way. In space, history is not a story. It is a checklist. Forgetting is not optimism. It is negligence. Physics does not negotiate. Orbits do not reward confidence. Innovation that ignores history does not advance. Instead, it explodes. Even within the space frontier, risk returns when external pressures intrude. Timelines are compressed. Corners are cut. Memory competes with momentum. And the consequences, when they arrive, are unforgiving. And now another word for our sponsors.
This episode of The Third Horizon is also brought to you by FCA, Fine Consulting Agency. If you need high-level policy analysis, structured research, or strategic writing tailored for government, space governance, or nonprofit sectors, FCA delivers clarity, organization, and deep insight. Learn more at fcaonline.info, that is fcaonline.info.
Let us step back and connect the dots. This is not about glorifying the past. History was flawed. Human beings were imperfect. What matters is that early societies understood consequence. Choices echoed forward. Decisions shaped what followed. Historical amnesia is not simply a moral failure. It is a failure of long-view thinking. Progress is not automatic. Experience is not obsolete because it's old. Memory does not persist on its own. It must be carried forward deliberately. If we forget what nearly destroys us, we risk repeating it. Telling ourselves that this time will be different. The scale may change. The pattern rarely does. The future does not belong to those who move fastest. It belongs to those who remember and choose wisely. Standing at the edge of what comes next requires more than imagination. It requires memory. Not as nostalgia, not as reverence, but as responsibility. Because forgetting history does not free us from it. It only ensures we meet it again, and usually unprepared. Historical amnesia is not a failure of intelligence. It is a failure of continuity. So this podcast is not about outrage, entertainment, or taking sides. It is about understanding where humanity is heading, spiritually, politically, and cosmically. If you are someone who senses the world shifting, if you feel the tension between what is and what could be, if you believe humanity is meant for something more, then welcome. This is the Third Horizon. I want to thank you for watching this week's episode. More conversations are coming. Deeper, wider, and firmly focused on the future. If you liked today's podcast, hit the like button, let us know in the comments, and subscribe to our Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook channels, or whatever platform you are on. Do not forget to share this podcast with your friends and family. Until next week, keep looking to the horizon and beyond.